What's up, Cerebral Football fans? My name is Steven Hyder. This is Gate City Sports Channel. And today, we're here to talk about this interior defensive line. And in particular, we're here to talk about the youth movement along the interior defensive line because I did a little digging. I just wanted to know from the averages and like the median, where did the defensive line lay out? Because we know it's young. But let me just lay out exactly where we are in terms of the averages of everything. On average, our average interior defensive lineman comes in about 6'3" and 5'8", so basically 75.625 inches, if you will. They come in around 303 pounds with a 33.5-inch arm reach. That's a big change from previous years, guys. An 81.2-inch wingspan, another pretty big change from previous years. And the median or average age is about 24 years old for this interior defensive line. So let me say that again, about 6'3" and 5'8", 303 pounds with 33.5-inch arm reach and an 81.2-inch wingspan at 24 years old is the average for the interior defensive line that Vic Fangio is about to take over and command in season. And I think this is fairly relevant because we see kind of a little bit of a changing of the guard. And it also helps us with knowing those averages. Now we can look at where the outliers are. We can talk about those outliers. So let's start off. Who's the biggest outlier here? I think you got them in both directions, right? In your first direction, you got the massive, oversized outlier who completely skewed some things. Let's be clear here in Jordan Davis, right? Big JD is 6'6", 336 pounds. I don't believe that for a second, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just stating what the website says. He's 24 years old. He'll turn 25 sometime in January, so I give him 24. He's got 34-inch arm reach and 81.125-inch wingspan. I mean, he's a nose. He's a big nose that's going to have to contribute and kick in sometime as a pass rusher when four-man sets. And we're going to have to see what this young man can do in terms of pass rush situations, right? So that's outlier number one. The second outlier that I would point out to, and I would just kind of like direct everyone's attention to, is going to be Milton Williams. And he's the outlier in the complete opposite direction, okay? So Milton, 6'3", 290, the height and weight thing, not necessarily the issue here. Little lighter in the weight. He's 25 years old, so he's actually, him and Thomas Booker, the elder statesmen of this room, to be quite honest. So 25-year-old with 31.5-inch arm reach. That's very short in the arm reach for the rest of these guys. Like, it's kind of impressive that we came out 33.5 inches in terms of the average from the arm reach when you got a guy like Milton Williams only 31.5 inches and a 78.5-inch wingspan. Here's the crazy thing, though. Listing these numbers, and this just tells you, like, they're good to know. It's good to assess things, but let's keep it real with, like, sometimes it's difficult to evaluate these things because if you looked at it from a grading perspective, now I'm going to tell you, from a logical football perspective, Jordan Davis is the cog. He's the key to the entire run defense. Jordan Davis is by far our most talented run defender. He's also a little inconsistent because while he's gotten in better physical shape, I don't know that necessarily even in year two that he was in the greatest game shape for the duration, right? I mean, we saw in the early season, he was kind of very dominant. We saw what he could do, but he kind of teetered off later in the season because still the game conditioning needs to be better for a Jordan Davis. So while I'm saying this, guys, we all know Jordan Davis is kind of the key to the run game. With that said, our highest graded guy, who's the 15th highest interior D lineman from last year in terms of run defense, was Milton Williams, who happens to be the most compact of these guys, right? The least physically intimidating, but probably the most physically gifted. I mean, this dude is a crazy athlete, Milton Williams. He's 6'3", 290. He's 31.5-inch arm reach, a 78.5-inch wingspan, but this dude is absolutely just dominating dudes in the run game. I mean, this young man was graded at a 72.3 in run defense with 21 run stops, 21 run stops for an 11.5 stop rate. When I tell you the rest of the guys on the list and you hear their stop rate, just think about that from Milton Williams' perspective. And he's double digits, man. He's pretty much the only double-digit guy there in run defense, right? And he's got a 1.7-yard average depth of tackle, which is it's significant, right? I mean, depending on what kind of scheme you're running, guys. I mean, it depends on your spacing. If you're playing 7, 8 versus 9-man spacing, you're playing a lot of 9-man spacing. Your average, depth of tackle should be quite short because you're committing a lot of resources to the run game, right? If you're playing 8-man, you're going to expect to see it around anywhere from 3 yards to about 1 yard is kind of like what you're going to look for there. Obviously, you really want it to be around that 2-yard mark or less. And then if you're playing 7-man, that's a lot of 2 gapping. You're going to see numbers that are above 3 yards. Like sometimes I think nose tackles get unjustly pointed out in terms of, they get graded quite lowly in run defense when they're clearly like the cog. They're clearly the main thing that's going on. They're the guys that are always being doubled to. And I do think sometimes it doesn't reflect quite well in the grading when it's like, come on, man. Like, we know like guys like Dexter Lawrence, we know guys like Jordan Davis, we know these guys that are like the big down inside players like that. Like they're pretty dang important to the success rate of what goes on. So another name to watch out for in the run game is Moro Ojomo. I'm really curious what this young man is going to do this season because he's going to have, looks like, an elevated role compared to last season. 7th round draft pick from last year. I called him the biggest steal of the 2023 NFL draft. I think was the title of my video, something like that. And I still believe this young man can play. However, what I will say is limited snaps. Keep that in perspective, guys. Let's not go out there and go crazy about this. We're talking about a limited snap basis. But he was the 22nd rated interior defensive lineman in run defense last season with a 70.8 grading, 2 defensive stops, which worked its way out to a 7.1% stop rate, and an average depth of tackle of 1.7 yards. Very similar numbers to Milton Williams minus the double-digit, kind of stop rate in there. The number 3 guy. So we had 3 dudes ranked in the top 50. Really, 3 guys ranked in the top 30. The number 3 guy was Jaylen Carter, who was the 27th graded or ranked run defender from the interior defensive line across the NFL last year. He had a 68.4 grading with 5 defensive stops for a 3.4 defensive stop rate, which isn't that, obviously, that's not a strength per se in terms of, making those plays, but a 2-yard average depth of tackle, an AVDT of 2 yards, which leads us to the last guy that's kind of be the focal point of today's discussion. It's going to be Jordan Davis. Jordan Davis is a little bit more complex. He ranked out 55. He just missed the top 50. Like I told you guys, sometimes with the nose tackles, I don't think that the grading is the most just, to be quite honest. Take all this stuff with a little bit of a grain of salt. Like, come on, guys. If you played the sport, if you're getting doubled to, of course, your numbers are going to look a little funny in the grading there. All right, he had a 62.2 grading. He had 17 defensive stops for a 7.4 stop rate, which just shows you this guy can be explosive. Even the amount of double teams that he's going to take on in the run game, the dude still can be explosive from time to time. He had a stop rate of, you have a 7.4% and average depth of tackle of 2.6 yards, which I do believe for Jordan Davis was actually a decrease from the year prior. I think he was up around 3 yards the year prior, and we knew that average depth of tackle had to get better. I'm going to go look at 22 and just make sure that I'm speaking correctly about these things. But I'm pretty sure the big guy, Jordan Davis, had Milton Williams was 10th overall at 22, by the way, in run defense. Like, the guy's a really good run defender. I'm going to get into a little bit. Yeah, so Jordan Davis was the 24th ranked overall run defender in the 22 season. Mind you, he was also being used sparingly. But he had a 71.8. He had, 9 stops for an 8.2 stop rate and an average depth of tackle of 3.3 yards. So, yeah, in 23, that average depth of tackle definitely came down a little bit. I also think that some of that has to do with the fact that they're getting more familiar with the scheme. While I do think there are some things we can talk about today where Vic Fangio will be a little different. Overall, I mean, these guys were running variations of the Fangio scheme. So I do think, from 21 to 22, going into 23, obviously outside of Milton Williams, our guys only really competed in 22 and 23, but the experience is kind of catching up, right? These guys are getting a little bit more familiar with their roles, with the expectations, where they're supposed to be, how the run fits work, those kind of things. The first thing I want to talk about, guys, is I wouldn't be shocked if we hear people go, man, I thought they were going to play a little bit more of that 50 front, Steve. I thought we were going to see more 50 front. And that's kind of the a little bit of a dirty secret of Vic Fangio is while he's one of the guys who should be kind of brought to the forefront of bringing that back into popularity in the game recently, he doesn't utilize it as much as his predecessors do, right? So like Sean Desai, what's the guy's name that coached out there in Minnesota? He coached for Vic. He was his D coordinator in Denver too. Ed Donatel, all these guys, even Gannon, who's not a direct, he's not part of that Fangio tree, but he used Fangio's system while he was here in Philadelphia, right? Those guys all ran far more 50 fronts than what Fangio has done traditionally, to be quite honest. Now, Fangio will still play it on early downs, like first down early in the game. He'll definitely play it in goal line situations. You'll definitely see it in third and short situations. Like situationally, you're going to see him go to the 50 front. And I do have a point to make here, guys, about the first preseason game and kind of like what happened, what occurred. But Fangio does try to stop the run. a little more often from a 4-man front because I don't think he wants to give up a lot of leverage early on in downs and early in games to the passing game, right? He wants to get as many guys into, basically being able to drop as he can because it just makes it harder to fit the ball into zones, basically. So first thing I'll say right away is I think we'll be as successful as we are successful with a 4-man front stopping the run. Truthfully, like I think we got to get a little better through 4-man front stopping the runs. I mean, if you go back and you take a look at what happened in the first game, they come out, they're in a 4-man front against Baltimore. Baltimore gashes them, right? They run what we call a sink. It's power through sink, what we called it. And they're pulling basically like a backside. They're pulling into the play side. And when they did that, Jordan Davis kind of got removed from that play, guys, which definitely caused some issues. Jordan Davis was the guy who kind of got whipped on that play. I know a lot of people were throwing, including me, until I saw the 22, I threw shade at Avonte Maddox too. I kind of threw a little bit of shade at the linebacker groups. I will say that Devin White, because he was moving over to cover the gap, he kind of got depleted. They worked up to the second level, and he was kind of, he's scraping over trying to play through the gap, and they just kind of caught him a little bit there. But the point I'm telling you this is no sooner than they do that, Vic immediately says, okay, we got to get back into a 50 front to stop the run here. Clearly. So he goes back into a 50 front. They did get beat in the flats, and then Jordan Davis and essentially Jaylen Carter took the game over with Milton Williams. They basically stopped anything that was coming through on the rest of that possession from the run game. That was through a 50 front, though. So we saw that Vic quickly adjusted, right? Vic really quickly adjusted back to a 50 front. Those are the things that I can't tell you right now, guys. I can't tell you. I know he's going to want to stop the run from a 4-down line front, like from a 40 front. And mind you, that 40 front could be deceivingly a 30 front. When I'm saying a 40 front in this aspects of the run defense, guys, I'm just literally talking about 4 linemen. Now, those 4 linemen could be 3 hands down in the dirt with 1 overhang, could be 2 down, 2 eye with a 3 tech with 2 overhangs. It can get kind of funky, man. It could be the way that they used to play things like Brandon Staley did and other of the Fangio guys. Brandon Staley used to play kind of an eagle aspect to this, to where he would stand up a bunch of guys, have one guy down on the nose. You might see some variation in the way that they try to do this from a 4-man front, but ultimately that's what I'm talking about, guys. I'm talking about committing 4 guys along the line of scrimmage, essentially, whether that's really from a 30 front, a 40 front, that's what I'm saying in that situation. It's going to be interesting, man, because in my opinion, and I almost titled the video this, I think the key to success here, quite frankly, is going to be Jaylen Carter. I think Jaylen Carter is a dude that is a rising star. I think Jaylen Carter is the next big thing for the NFL defensively along the D lines. Now, am I saying that this guy's going to be Aaron Donald? Am I saying this guy's going to be, Ndamukong Suh? Am I saying I don't know. I mean, time will tell, right? Like I don't want to put that kind of expectation and burden on the young man. But what I am saying is that if you go back and you take a look at what this guy did, being an adequate and good run defender to then being an outstanding, rush guy, pass rush guy. I mean, look, he was the 4th highest graded interior defensive lineman in terms of true pass set. So removing RPOs and then removing things like play action from your pass rush. Okay. He was the 4th highest graded guy at a 90.6 grade. He had 43 total pressures. They worked their way out to 33 hurries. I don't know how they get to 7 sacks, guys. I think if I'm not mistaken, I do think that PFF is one of those ones where they count half sacks as full sacks. So I think that's where they're getting the 7 sacks from. I don't know, guys. 3 hits, but I think the telltale sign here is the win rate. Okay. Graded out of the 90.6, had 43 total pressures, but had a win rate of 25.5%, which was the 5th highest among all interior D linemen. So his rookie season, he was already kind of producing this kind of, these kind of numbers, man. I think this dude is the up and coming phenom. I know that some of our division foes, they're going to want to get on our heads and say, like, oh, you're overvaluing Jaylen Carter. I think this dude's about to show some people this year. I have a lot of faith that this guy's going to be not just good, but like really good. And don't get it twisted. Don't get it wrong, guys. I understand that we are replacing somebody who means a lot to a lot of us as fans here in Philadelphia in Fletcher Cox, right? I thought Fletch kind of was dwindling in 2020 and 2021. He was dwindling a little bit. He hit heads with Jonathan Gannon, where he was like, man, I'm not fitting to try to cover no running back in space. What's wrong with you or no receiver in space? You remember the tension we had with Fletcher Cox where he didn't really want to play this gap and a half stuff, right? He just wanted to be in a 1 gap Jim Schwartz system and go get the quarterback. So, I mean, in 2020 and 2021, I felt like Fletch was kind of dwindling a little bit, but man, he really came on in 2022 and 2023. I think Fletch went out kind of on top, man. I thought Fletch had a really good end to his career. And I don't want to make it sound like I don't think that that's significant. It is significant. I will even admit that I was a little shocked, guys, if I'm being totally honest about this. I was a little shocked that they didn't maybe bring in a veteran dude. Let me run down the ages for you. Jaylen Carter's 23 years old. Jordan Davis is 24 years old. He'll turn 25 in like mid-January. Milton Williams is 25 years old. Moro Jamo is 23 years old. Thomas Booker IV is 25 years old. Well, he's 24, but he'll be 25 by season's complete. Okay. Byron Young is 24 years old. He'll turn 25 sometime in November. I'm sorry, he's 23 currently, but he'll turn 24 sometime in November. Okay. Gabe Hall on the practice squad. He's 23 years old. Okay. I don't know what's going to happen with Marlon Tuipulotu. He was released yesterday. There's a chance that he clears waivers. I don't know. I do get a weird feeling that Marlon Tuipulotu might be one of those guys that gets claimed. So I do think there is some use for Tui across the league. But if he makes it and we can get him back to the practice squad, right? Even Marley Tuipulotu is only 25 years old. The elder statesmen on these rosters are Marlon Tuipulotu, if he gets back to us on the practice squad at 25. Okay. Milton Williams at 25. And then my guy Thomas Booker when he turns 25 in November. That's the elder statesman in that room. So, yeah, I'm going to say that, like, I thought they might have gone the route of getting a veteran dude in here. But I just think that, honestly, when Vic came in and he assessed the interior D-line, I think he liked what he saw. I just think he was like, man, yeah, they're young. Yeah, some of these dudes aren't exactly, like, battle-tested in terms of the snap percentages. Like, none of these dudes are necessarily playing 700 snaps on the season here. Jaylen Carter hasn't done that yet. Jordan, Davis hasn't really done that yet. Milton hasn't really done that yet. Ajama hasn't done that yet. Booker hasn't. I don't think Byron Young came close to that last year either. Even Tui didn't, because he got injured quite a few times. I think all these guys have kind of hovered around that 400 mark when they've played and they've been a part of the rotation. I think Jaylen Carter's a little above 400. Let me go check his snap count real quick because I think that would be one of the ones we probably should know is Jaylen Carter and know his snap count. But, like, none of these guys, like, have played a ton of snaps. I think we all know that, and I think that's part of the reason why, if you look at how deep they went, man, they're 6 deep with Gabe Hall currently on the practice squad to go 7, really, and they could potentially even add back a Marley Tuipulotu if they want to. If he makes it through, he's available. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if they brought him back, guys. Like, would you? I mean, they like the dude. They said he was having a good camp. I know I spoke out, guys, and I said, I don't know. Yeah, so he played 563 defensive snaps. So he was up at least around 500. But none of these dudes have hit that 700 mark is my point, right? That we saw like Fletch and Javon Hargrave and those dudes were playing, right? That's going to be interesting to see how they work this out. I do think it will be a little bit of a rotation. I do think that we're going to have to answer questions about the utilization of a guy like Jordan Davis. I do think that there's a little uncertainty at backup nose because right now I think you have to kick Jaylen Carter inside for a few snaps here and there. Not that he's like a primary backup at the nose tackle, but the way they used to do with Fletch, guys, they would kick Fletch in on occasion to take some snaps at nose because, your nose tackle's got to get a break here and there, guys, right? I do think that, early on we heard some rumblings that Thomas Booker is not the biggest dude in the world, but, he does come out with decent wing size. He's a guy that they have played at the nose before, but I do think he's a little undersized, to be quite honest. They're going to have to figure something out here, right? Like, I was a little shocked that they didn't do a little bit more in terms of, getting guys to play the outside or play the nose, my bad, guys. You're never going to be 100% on any roster, though, right, guys? Like, that's the other side of this. Like it's nitpicking is crap, right? Like to say, like, yeah, come on, Gate. Like this team is talented as heck. Like you just said yourself, they're probably not going to play as much 50 front. So, unless if they play if they start playing 50 front the way we've been playing it the last 2 years, like that probably means that something hasn't gone quite right, Steve. And they're having to overcommit to the run game because we're not getting it done. I'm hyped, man. I honestly feel like this interior D line, while I have some real question marks about the depth and the quality of depth outside, I think Nolan Smith hedges a lot of things in terms of the edge players. And we're going to get into that later. We're going to do that next week. We're going to talk about the edge. Oh boy, I'm pretty excited about what I see in terms of like the interior D line in terms of what we have here from a quality of 3 guys up front that I think Jaylen Carter, Jordan Davis, and Milton Williams. I think most NFL teams would love to have that combo of dudes, right? All the confusion, all the frustration, all the like, geez, Jordan Davis, dude, you've gotten yourself into physical shape, but you got to get yourself into game shape now. Like I think most teams across the league would love to have that headache, to be quite honest. Like Milton Williams, not ideal. He's a kind of an in-betweener. He's a tweener, right? You know, he's 6'3", 290, only 31.5-inch arms. My guy might have some T-Rex arms, but I mean, Milton plays with such good leverage, it doesn't matter. And I don't know how, like, I honestly feel like Mr. Sandman would be way better to explain this to you because he played some nose in college. So I think Mr. Sandman would probably be better explaining this aspect of like playing with proper leverage, proper hip inflection, and like how you shoot your hands and the way that stuff works. But like just from the things I saw from people who understand line play a little better than me, and they were like pointing things out on film, that's the one thing that stood out to me about what they were showing me with Milton Williams is like, this isn't the biggest dude in the world. He's super twitchy. He's fast. But man, he plays with such good pad level and leverage. He's just, I mean, just on it every single time. He's at the right place. And that's why he wins so much, even though, like, traditionally speaking, you like to see guys that have a little bit of arm reach, right? You like to, that was one thing I used to criticize the Eagles for, because for a while, outside of like Fletch, you know, you got Javon Hargrave. Javon Hargrave just wasn't that guy, great pass rusher, but just wasn't that guy in the run defense room. Just didn't have great leverage, didn't play with great pad level, didn't play with great, you know, he just didn't have it, man. You look at this one and you're just like, man, 33.5-inch arm reach for Jaylen Carter, 34-inch arm reach for Jordan Davis, 31.5-inch for Milton, 34.5-inch for Moro Ojamo, 33.25 for Thomas Booker, 34 and a 0.38-inch arm reach for Byron Young. And then you go down to even the practice squad, and Gabe Hall has 34.5-inch arm reach. He's another one of these tall tweener kind of 6'6", 295 guys with 34.5-inch arms. And then you got, even if they bring back Tui, back, he's 33 inches in the arm reach. He's got an 81-inch wingspan. Like, they definitely sought to get, like, I definitely saw the difference in 22 once they made certain moves, right? Once they went out there and they got Ndamukong Suh, once they went out there and they got Linval Joseph, you saw much longer, stout dudes that could play the run come in here, and you saw immediately when you mixed in the Jordan Davis, when he got heavy, when you started mixing in that line, boy, they really started to defend the run a lot better than they had done earlier in the season. I remember that Houston game to where it was getting quite frustrating because we should have put Houston away solidly early in that game. And they stuck around far too long in the 22 season because they were able to get some momentum through the run game on us, which was kind of hurting us. Then they were able to start mixing up offense on us, which was like, okay, this is not cool. Like, we better get this figured out. We better get this figured out now, because this is not okay. You could see that they kind of got that, like the scouting department, the front office. I think even some input from the coaching staff probably helped them a little bit with like, hey, it's more important that they're playing with proper pad level and they're playing with proper hip inflection and they're coming up and they're shooting correctly. That's way more important than the length that they play with, but length does factor into this stuff, guys. No doubt about it. So I'm excited, man. I think the interior defensive line has a lot of potential. It's young as crap. It's very unknown. I can't say that I have all the answers. I don't know exactly how it's going to go out, but I do think that potentially having a dude that's going to be like just a wrecking crew across the NFL and Jaylen Carter is going to help you, right? And a really undervalued guy in Milton Williams, who's just a really solid football player. That's going to help you out a lot. A guy like Jordan Davis, to where if you can keep this guy fresh, if this dude is healthy and he's got his lungs together and he's being able to play 30, 45 snaps, somewhere between 30 and 45 snaps a game, that's going to help you a lot, man. I mean, that's going to really help you. Then it's just a matter of like, can Ojamo, can Booker, and can Young really play? The three guys that are in kind of those reserve roles. How do you approach the nose tackle position when you got to give Jordan Davis a break? Like, those are the things that, we'll find out in season. But I do think that there's reason to be optimistic right now. Like, there's reasons to think like, hey, man, dude, even Tui, like them cutting Tui just tells you like they're really like they're on it. They're on it because Tui's a good player, man. I think Tui would make a lot of teams football. I think he would make a lot of football teams, to be quite honest. I think Tui's a good player. Now, I don't think he's a particularly great pass rusher. I don't think that potential was ever lived up to, but I do think that he was decent. He was okay, at least in the run game. I do think he played with some violent hands from time to time. I do think he was able to disrupt in terms of, and that's one thing you see. Like, you look at a guy like Jaylen Carter when we talk about being disruptive, that ability to basically shoot your hands and really just disrupt the offensive line, the flow of a play. Just completely destroying that flow of the play is a big deal. I think they're in a good spot, man. I think they really like what they have along the D line, especially in the interior D line. A little curious what they do at edge. I'm not going to lie. But along that interior D line, I do think that they like what they have here. All right, y'all. Let's jump into some comments, man. Let's fluff and go. What's up, man? How you doing, buddy? JLU, how you doing, bro? One above all. What's going on, man? Davis needs to be impactful this season. Milton has a high motor. Yeah, he does. He's relentless. He's very relentless. But in addition to being relentless, he just plays with proper pad level. You know, his pad leverage is where you want it to be, and the way that he shoots his hips is correctly. It's just he's one of those guys that they made a really smart decision drafting a few years ago. Like, I know that wasn't their plan A, but that was one heck of a plan B, man. It was one heck of a plan B they had there. Ian said, absolutely love your breakdowns, bro. Hey, man, I appreciate you. Eric, good morning, man. How you doing, buddy? What's up, Michael? How are you, bud? My guy one above all said, I wonder why Saiki Ika, I don't know how to say his first name, is still a free agent. Seems like a logical backup if you need a super fatty to take up space. If you need that nose tackle. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. You know, we'll see what they do. They might want to see how they play the run game. And then from there, they'll make a decision on the way they're playing the nose and if they think it's going to be sustainable throughout the season, one above all. And I wouldn't be shocked if you see a name like that kind of get signed in as a depth piece. It's possible. I wouldn't be shocked if Marlon Tuipulotu too, if he makes it through waivers, if he's not brought back to the practice squad for that exact reasoning as well. One above all, like, I definitely think you're kind of like, you're where I am, where it's like, I trust the frontline guys, and I really trust in their ability to play 3 technique and even play some 5 technique with some of these dudes with their hands in the dirt. It is a little questionable what they do behind Jordan Davis. Like, of course, Jaylen Carter could play a few snaps here and there, but like past Jaylen Carter pitching in here and there, yeah, what are they doing at nose behind Jordan Davis? Yeah, I mean, that is a big issue, man. I wanted them to take a look at him. What's up, Millens? How you doing, man? Mullins, my bad, man. His tape was trashy though. Yeah, I blame Devin White for that gash run. Is Josh Sweat playing in a 2-point stance on the edge? Doesn't sound like that's in his wheelhouse. I don't know, Mr. Sandman. I mean, we didn't really get a lot of tape to evaluate these dudes, unfortunately. I know Vic gave us more tape to evaluate with starters than certainly what we got from, you know, the no tape we got from the offensive side. But I don't know. I mean, we're going to have to wait to see in season how they start playing them in terms of Sweat. I will say that Vic does, like, he will play a 4-man front where he's got 3 down linemen, so it's really a 30 front, Mr. Sandman, and then he kind of overhangs. He uses normally a joker, which will be interesting because typically that's where he's assigned to. He's assigned to that jack linebacker area, right? Where you traditional 34, where you would play your jack linebacker. They normally overhang the jack linebacker. So I don't know if that changes things up and they put, you know, maybe they play sweaty. Maybe they play Sweat to, you know, like on the strong side with his hands in the dirt on occasion. And then they move, you know, a Bryce Huff to the weak side as the jack and overhang them. I don't know, Mr. Simmons. That's a great question. How he keeps working left allow. Byron Young, defensive tackle, 3rd round pick from the Raiders last year. Feel like Vic said, I need him, and we waived a defensive tackle. What's up, Dewad? How you doing, bro? Sounds about right. What's up, Daz? How you doing, man? Mr. Salmon says, if Fangio likes to blitz his off-ball linebackers, then he's going to need edges or outside linebackers that can drop into coverage. Yeah, I mean, definitely. That's definitely going to be part of it, Mr. Sandman. There's no doubt about that. I will say he does a lot of simulated pressure. So he'll simulate like he's going to bring a blitz and you're going to see guys drop. But he also will mix that up with essentially like a disguised kind of replacement blitz to where he might send your nickel, he might send your outside corner, he might send one of the linebackers. Like he will disguise some things in terms of those replacement blitzes, which I get they're not, it's just the terminology they use. I get it's not an actual blitz if you're still only sending 4 people, but that's the terminology they use for it. Hey, Steve, how's it going, bro? How many wins do you see our Birds getting this season? I see 12. I definitely think it'll be double digits. And I think you're right. You're right around the area I would probably be. I'd say 11 on the low end, 13 probably on the high end. 6th youngest in the NFL. I was looking for that weight game, so I appreciate you putting that in there. I was like, I know they got to be pretty young. I don't know the exact number, but yeah, man. Yeah, that's pretty young. GM Gate. Appreciate you, Twiz. I think our D line is one of the youngest in the league. Yeah. They were just saying this is 6th youngest outside of BG, the elder statesman. Jaylen Carter is going to see so many double teams. Jordan Davis just needs to beat his man one-on-one. 57 folks liking. Let's get them likes up. Watching. Let's get them likes up. Appreciate y'all, man. What's up? I'm awake. How you doing, buddy? Not too sure about Byron Young. Looks like he plays more of the nose tackle while he's a sub 300 pounder, so he's undersized. Raider fans said he was supposed to be a run stuffer, but sucked at it. I didn't really get a chance to evaluate him like that yet, Brian. I'm going to get a chance as time goes on. I'll get a chance to really run more of his tape and see kind of how they were using him. But he seems a little undersized to be a nose. I mean, it's only 290 pounds. Maybe if you're tilting your nose and you're trying to use speed, so if you're using like that tilted old Steelers front, maybe. Milton is very strong and quick. This defense has the ability to be extremely dominant. It's all going to take its time to gel together. All it's going to take is time to gel together. Sorry, Joe. I got it the second time around, sir. If our secondary plays well, everything will come together. Can't wait. I do think there's an argument to be made there. I'm awake, and I've been thinking about this, but I haven't put it out there publicly because I'm not 1,000% convinced on essentially my premise yet. I know that the Eagles front office is very, they're very much front seven dominant, but it does seem since Vic got here, and this could just be circumstantial because of where the roster needed improvement, they do seem back seven dominant. It does seem more like the Bill Belichick approach to defense, to where you start with your coverages and you work in your pass rush from there. I don't know. I need to really evaluate each stop along the way, the San Francisco to Chicago to Denver to Miami to coming over here in Philly before I say definitively with that. But I have gotten like some kind of hunches and feelings about that myself. I'm awake that perhaps Vic Fangio is more back seven dominant than we were probably led to believe early on. But yeah, I definitely think there's a case to say if the secondary is right, everything's going to be right. Lineman and leverage is similar to Olympic wrestling or MMA grappling. Low man always wins, especially against big O linemen that don't have great flexibility. Great point. Great point, Mr. Sandman. 1 week left. It's getting really exciting. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I can't wait, Joe. What's up, Michael, man? I'm hanging in there, bro. How about you, bro? Jaylen Carter will be an all-pro this season. Hey, I'm with you, man. I wanted to draft Ika. I don't know how you say his last name. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Like logically, it makes sense to have something like because if Jordan Davis misses a game or two, or even if he misses like a quarter, like you're definitely kind of in some very challenging situation here defensively in terms of the way you're going to play the nose. I'm kind of with you. I'm awake. It's definitely weird. You believe Sweat will stand up a bunch? I think when they play there's a formation where they play like they have a 2-eye, then they have a 3 technique, and they got both of their edges kind of standing up, basically overhanging essentially. Like, yeah, I think he's going to overhang when they do that. But Vic does play like this weird adaptation of the 3-3-5 is the best way I can describe it. And like I said, he puts 3 down linemen there. He generally overhangs like what we would call the jack linebacker, the weak side, kind of on ball backer. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm awake. I'm just waiting to get tape on it, and I have hunches of what he's going to do, but the personnel's different in Philly than he's had in other places. So I'm trying to kind of be a little patient and just see what he does on tape once we get that 22 access after the Green Bay game. Sorry, Alexa's listening in on me trying to retype what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm not sure what's with Ika. The Browns are very good in developing D linemen, so there's definitely something not right with them. Coach, when are you doing a pod with Tone? I did one recently. I did one before was it the second preseason game, I want to say? I did one recently. If you go look on his channel, actually, it was like a couple weeks ago. I did one with him. But we both work in the morning, so I'm sure we'll contribute to each other's channels. I've known Tone now for a few years. So yeah, I'm sure we'll both be on each other's channels here and there. Steve, what's your opinion on the offense and the additions of Barkley? I think Barkley's going to pay. Like, I mean, we all know what Barkley can do on the ground. I don't think that Barkley is like as big as he is. I don't think he's like this get behind your shoulder pads and run type guy. I mean, I think he has the ability to do it, but he doesn't necessarily do that by nature per se. I do think there's a little bit more of the big play kind of aspect to his game. That's what he's looking for. He's always looking to kind of break one. I will say that he's going to be a significant upgrade in pass protection. I do think that's going to help. And I do think that some of the issues we saw versus pressure in particular, having a guy like Saquon can definitely help you out a little bit. No doubt about it. From the receiving game perspective, I think he's an okay receiver. I think you can I think he was like third in like dump down, basically kind of like check down or screen developed plays in terms of total yardage. I want to say something like that. So, I mean, like he's definitely, in terms of being able to do that and saving Jaylen, from being hit on a repeated basis. Like they got to work. Like that's the hard thing, Joe's like, you don't want to take away what makes Jaylen really, really good and puts a lot of stress on the defense. But at the same time, you want to manage it correctly, right? I mean, and that's like, it's easy to say those things. It's a lot harder from a coaching perspective to actually have it realized. So I'm trying to be careful and like, you know what I mean? Like, I think we all inherently kind of know that we need to shift some things, but the exact ingredients in terms of like how we shape this thing in terms of the percentages, I think it's still to be determined, to be quite honest. Gate City, you think Sidney Brown plays midseason, or do you think it will take next year for him to play? Donnie, I think he'll be back, actually. Yeah, I definitely think he'll be back. So I think by, somewhere between week 4, we should hear, somewhere around between weeks 4 and 6, he should get activated. After he's activated, you should hear that he's practicing. From there, it'll be an assessment of when they're ready to basically play him, because he's already counting against your 53 at that point. I know interior D-line is the topic today, but did you evaluate Cooper DeJean's film yet? A little bit. So Coop was the fit that I thought he would be from the nickel spot in terms of kind of the way they play their nickel corners in Fangio's scheme, Mr. Sandman, which there's always going to be, there always have the pass responsibility always comes first there. But when you're playing like especially 8-man spacing in particular, Mr. Sandman, like he's got to be an important player when it comes to the fits. So, you have that, especially if they're slinging it. So you're slinging that outside edge player. Then like Cooper DeJean or one of your safeties, or that outside corner, one of those guys have to step up because they're now going to become the overhang in terms of the run game for the defense, right? No one should get outside of them in terms of that. I thought he stuck his head down in there in terms of playing around the box. I thought he was, played pretty well there. I have to evaluate essentially where his drops were, Mr. Sandman. I got to see exactly the depth he was gaining in those drops. Definitely looked a little shaky early on the game just from the eye test. Looked like he kind of got his feet under him as the game went on. But probably a guy that probably needs a couple of weeks. I think missing the majority of camp, it might take, sparing snaps here and there in a couple of weeks in practice and getting your bearings to exactly where they want you to be in terms of the pass coverage. It might take some time there. I'm also curious that, you got guys that I think are able to play the spot, but haven't gone through the calls before. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Mr. Salmon, how important those calls are, especially if you're going to play split field stuff. I know Vic's going to play a lot of Rip Liz, cover 3, cover 9 stuff, but when you get to that split field stuff, which, Vic was very heavy in that cover 6 aspect of 6 and 8 for a long time. Those guys they got to come correct. They got to come true on those calls. Knowing when you're passing off responsibility, the outside corner is responsible off passability because he's got what he deems to be a fast 3 coming at him, right? So he's telling you if this guy crosses your face, you got to pick him up. Knowing in terms of what they're going to do in terms of leverage and in terms of, okay, this is, I'm going to make this call because I got a feeling this guy's outside releasing, things like that. They got to be, that was some of the struggles we had last year, to be quite honest, until we went out there and got Bradley Roby, who was more experienced. You saw immediately that even though Roby's feet were kind of gone a little bit, just his experience started to pay dividends a little bit. But give guys like Eli Ricks credit. Eli Ricks came in and was more than respectable playing the position. I don't think he was the right spot for him. I don't think that athletically he fits there, to be quite honest, in terms of playing in the nickel. But I think he got the calls pretty quickly. You know what I mean? I think he understood the calls pretty fast. I think that's the aspect of Cooper DeJean I can't really say yet until I see it on the field. I see that he's not mixing up coverages, he's not mixing up responsibilities, not letting someone go free, stuff like that. Question: is the best cornerback on the team? We know that will QB CB2 on base defense and move to slot and nickel. That's what I've heard. It's tough. It's actually really tough, man. I've heard it said both ways. I heard it said that they're going to start the veteran guy in Isaiah Rodgers, and then a nickel they're going to bring Q out to play. With that said, I also heard it said the other way that no, people are misunderstanding it. Q's going to be in base. He'll be out there on the outside. And then when they kick in, when they're going to play nickel essentially or dime, he's going to be one of the guys that they kick inside. And then they'll bring Isaiah Rodgers in to play outside. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle it. It's definitely going to be an interesting one. That's one that I think the way you're thinking about it right now, I think it's the correct one, but I can't say with 100% certainty. I kind of got the same hunch that they're going to play him in base on the outside as a starter, but then when he kick into nickel or dime, he's going to kick inside. That's the same kind of feel I got from it, but we won't know until they line him up on Friday. Well, not tonight, but you get what I'm saying. Next Friday. I've been saying we should add Sika to the practice squad. He's still available. I think you better find an answer at the nose. I mean, if you don't get Sika, then you better, if you can get Marlon Tuipulotu back and get him on the practice squad, you better get him there, because if there's an injury, whew, that would get kind of rough, BMO. That would be pretty rough to figure out what they do there. I have a lot of belief in JD, but I need to see more. He does his job with filling up gaps as far as the run game is concerned, but when you're drafting 13th overall, you need to be able to rush the quarterback. What's up, Wealthy Mind? I actually took a look at that, right? Because I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I didn't have the same concerns that you're basically expressing right now. I kind of came away feeling the same way. But what I was shocked to see was he actually ranked higher than I thought in TPS, true pass set rushes. He ranked 37th overall, which, by the way, they need Jordan Davis to be better than 37th overall. Like, that would still be a little disappointing. If he can sneak his way into the top 25, I think you're cooking a little bit, right? You're cooking a little bit with Jordan Davis. But he was graded out as a 75.2. He had 11 total pressures, 7 hurries. They credited him with 3 sacks. Clearly, there was a half sack being counted there. 1 quarterback hit and a 12.4% win rate. The win rate is quite respectable for his size, although I think he's better than that. I mean, the explosion this guy can play with, if he ever learns a pass rush toolbox, like he learns that toolbox, I mean, I think he could be way higher than that. I don't think he's ever going to be around Jaylen Carter's 25% once every 4 he's winning. I don't think you're going to see that, but he could definitely creep up, I think, above 15% if you're really getting humming here. I think the biggest thing is while he had, I think it was 2.5 sacks, they're recording 3, and he had 7 hurries, only getting 1 quarterback hit. I'm like, man, he should be either the hurries need to uptick because he's pushing the pocket, Wealthy Mind, like he's physically pushing the center and the guard back into the lap of the quarterback, or we need to get through on quarterback hits where he's just beating the guy off the snap. He's beating the guy off the ball, and he's just absolutely creating havoc, and he's hitting the quarterback. We do need to see those numbers in particular, that they need to tick upwards, to be quite honest. He's, like I said, graded higher than I would have thought, Wealthy Mind. Still probably needs to be better. I still think we need him to be in that top 25 range. If he gets in that top 25 range, and I don't think Jordan Davis needs to be top 5 or 10, but if he can get into the top 25 range in terms of pass rush grading and have that kind of impact, in terms of being able to create, hurries, hit the quarterback, things like that. Yeah, I think it'll be a good thing, man. I honestly think that this team will be humming from those 4-man fronts. Mr. Salmon says, I worry about Josh Sweat in a 2-point stance because lateral mobility, ability to move side to side, especially with his reconstructed knee. Yeah, there was a time where he was a very good athlete. It makes a lot of sense for a Vic Fangio scheme. But recently, I agree that it is harder to move side to side than front to back when you're dealing with issues in terms of like the mobility within your knee. Because I think he had some pretty significant ligament damage, if I'm not mistaken. And I think he had several injuries, didn't he, Mr. Sandman, between high school and college? Didn't he have because I know he's got like a degenerative knee issue. I'm late to the show. Didn't know Eco was already spoke on. Oh, you're good, Bimo. You're not the only one. There's like 3 or 4 people have been saying like, man, that's one that would make a lot of sense. Everyone's been saying, I wonder if they're going to bring him to the practice squad or something like that, because he would make a ton of sense as a backup nose. Joe said, Steve, what are your thoughts on Devin White? Will he return to his dominance because he was amazing only a couple of years ago? I mean, I think we all are hoping that, Joe. I mean, honestly, obviously, I can't say definitively one way or the other. I think he's much better in pass coverage than he is in a run defense at times. Although when he really sees it in run defense, his athleticism and his physical just size, it's impressive. I will say that like Nakobe, you could see Nakobe Dean's instincts in the run game. Like his instincts are. I know people are giving up on Nakobe Dean. I even got a comment the other day that was like, they were like, "Huh? Why are you so high on Nakobe Dean?" And I'm like, it's not that I'm that high on Nakobe Dean. I still think Nakobe Dean's got a lot to prove here, guys. But I do think he's quite instinctive when it comes to the run game. Like he's not big dude. I mean, we're always going to wonder if he can endure an entire season and the wear and tear and getting hit like that. But the dude is really instinctual when it comes to the run game. I mean, he sees stuff develop and he shoots the gaps. I know recently there's been some noise, Joe, about Nakobe might actually be replacing Devin White, and it might be Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean. I think because you've been working so much with Devin White with the green dot of play calling, I think it's more likely that if something like that were to occur, it would be Devin White as the Mike, Nakobe Dean as the Will. Now, I will say early on, I told people I would probably play Nakobe at the Mike, and I would probably play Devin White at the Will personally. But I don't know that the roles are they're definitely different, but I don't know that they're so different that like a guy can't, what I mean? Especially a guy that's 240 some pounds. Like, Devin White can't adjust to those roles. Now, I will say that the way that they play their gap containment in the A, Joe, that might be why they want Nakobe there, playing the Will. Because they do, their way that they structure themselves between what they call tough and what they call tight. So TUFF and TITE. All that is the way that the nose tackle and then the Will linebacker communicate and work off of each other to play the A gap. Basically, it defines essentially who has backside versus play side responsibility in the A gap. That's all that, that's not all of it, but that's the vast majority of what those terms are about, to be quite honest. Now, I will say that depending on the system, the scheme, and things like that, like those words can have different meanings. That's why it kind of messed me up the first time he kept saying tough. I knew what tight was. I mean, that's not new to me, but when I was playing and when I coached in particular, we ran off the Frank Beamer model of defense, to be quite honest. And I always, tough to us was a 44 front. We called it our tough front. So like it kind of messed me up a little bit. Like I was like, I actually had to go learn the way that Vic was using that terminology. It is not a must that JD gets sacks. If he can get them, great. But his job is to clog and occupy the middle of the line and track double and triple teams so defensive tackles and defensive ends can get one-on-ones and eat. Exactly, yeah. Vic made a mistake not playing Coop at safety first. Good morning, Steve. Love the content. Go Birds. What's up, Philly D? How you doing, buddy? Good morning, man. You said JD was ranked 37th overall, but out of how many other defensive tackles? It's a great question, BMO. Hang on. I can tell you real quick. I still have it up. So I did filter by – no, I didn't. I didn't filter at all for minimum run defense snaps. So let me go back to pass rush because that's what we're talking about. You want to know his pass rush rankings at 37. So let's go to defense pass rush. And I'm going to go to true pass sets. So we're going true pass sets. So BMO, when they do true pass sets, they're removing RPOs and then removing play action from it. Sorry, it's just taking a second to load. Hang on, it's also on 22, not 23. All right, while it's loading, I'm going to go ahead and read some comments, and I'll tell you exactly how many it was, BMO. Big Pickett said Eagles pass rush from D-line will be more by design. I almost said design, Big Pickett. I'm not going to just let guys do what they want. Not going to let guys freelance. Sorry, it's still loading, guys. I think it's because I'm live streaming. It's going to take a while to load it. I watched Zach Bond's film on the Philly Film Room YouTube channel, and he is instinctive, communicates well, and can plug the holes well. He's physical. He's physical at the point of attack. I still don't think he's natural, if I'm being honest. Donnie, I'm sorry, Donnie. I didn't pull your comment up. My bad, man. I don't know that I would say that he's a natural at that position, to be honest. I think he's probably better suited to play on ball inside of Fangio's system, but the dude's he tries hard. Like, and he's just a team guy, Donnie. Like, he's going to do what he's asked. Like, I think that's from a coaching perspective. You love guys like that. You know what I mean? Like, that's why those dudes make your team and become instrumental in what you're doing. Instrumental in like the way you facilitate your defense and stuff like that. I definitely think if you go back and you look at that play we talked about earlier in the first preseason game, the first play that Baltimore ran to where they ran what we called power sink. You could see that, Zach Bond's the guy who takes on the pulling guard and does a pretty good job defeating that. Now, did miss an opportunity to make the tackle in the backfield. It was a difficult tackle, to be fair. And so did Avonte Maddox, who also saw, he looks at the receiver, sees the receiver, takes a second step towards him, clearly knows that receiver's coming in the block, and Avonte shot the gap. Avonte and Zach Bond kind of missed there, but I can't put that on because those would have been really tough tackles to make. The bigger thing is Jordan Davis got removed. Jordan Davis getting removed is what sets everything into motion, and then basically Devin White got depleted on that play as he was scraping over. If people gave up on Dean, they haven't been paying attention. I still get on BMO. I still get on, man, on old videos, bro. N'Kobe is London Fletcher-ish, and Nolan's body type reminds me of Trent Cole. What's up, Eagles fan? How you doing, buddy? Let me see, guys. Let me see if it finally pulled up. Come on, PFF. Just don't want to load. Come on now. All right, Donnie said they show Devin White and Bond communicating very well and being in sync with the safeties and corners. Wealthy Mind says right, and I think a lot has to do with the time it took to get him into NFL game conditioning. Yeah, exactly. To get those numbers to steadily improve. Going into his third season, those numbers will go up. That's what I'm hoping too, because if he's in the top 25 conversation as a pass rusher from the interior, like, we can live with that, right? I mean, he's not going to be dominant. It's not dominant, but, he's never going to be Jaylen Carter in that aspect, but it's respectable, and I think it makes it difficult to defend us. Mr. Salmon says, we didn't see Jordan Davis on obvious passing downs, third and long, etc. He should get more opportunities to rush the passer this season. Yeah, I'm curious how they play the rotation, to be honest, Mr. Salmon. All right, guys, I pulled it up. So I want to go to a couple points here. So the first thing is let's take a look at total snaps. So let me go down to 37. All right. And pull this up. Hang on, minimum rush snaps. Let me filter that by 20%. And we'll go with true pass. True pass sets. We're going with the pass rush grading on it. All right, I'm going to scroll down to Jordan Davis at 37. So he played less than 100 snaps in true pass sets, to Mr. Sandman's point. And I do think that Mr. Sandman has a point that it's going to tick upwards. I'm just going to give you some numbers of guys around him. Christian Wilkins, who played for Vic Fangio last year, 252 snaps in true pass sets. Derek Brown from the Carolina Panthers, 199. Michael Pierce of Baltimore, 211. Vita Vea, 189. Zach Zeeler played for them last year, played for Vic last year, 245. Let's see some other guys. Aleem McNeil, who the Eagles wanted to draft a few years ago, and they got Milton instead, 151. Anya Mata from Atlanta, 169. I would say from 96, Mr. Sandman, let me know if I'm a little off here in your opinion. I would say watch the uptick to be around 140 to the 180 range, safely. Somewhere in that 140 to 180 range. I think you probably see the uptick. I'm trying to work that out in my head to how many additional snaps that is. So let me go from 96. Hang on. Let's do 140 minus the 96 he played last year, and we'll divide that out by 17. So that's 44 additional snaps. Okay. So if we take 44 additional snaps, we divide that out by 17 games. Assuming he plays 17, he might only play 16. That's an extra 2 to 3, essentially, pass rush opportunities per game. So that would put him at like 140 if he gets an additional 2 to 3 per game. 180, let me divide that out by minus that out by the 96 snaps he played the year prior. Be an additional 84 over the course of the season. Let me divide that by 17 games. So that would be an additional 4.94, so 4 to 5 snaps. So we're saying between 140 to 180 would put him into an additional 2 to 3 snaps per game on pass rush opportunities to potentially all the way up to 4 to 5 additional pass rush snaps per game is kind of where I rated that out if you just do it by the numbers. Let me know what you think there, Mr. Sandman, in terms of that. I think it's going to be around that 140, 150 mark personally, but yeah, I could, I definitely think you're right. There's going to be an uptick. Fire Show Coach, great question, chat. Hit them likes. Appreciate you, man. Hang on. I didn't answer your question. Be more careful. My bad, man. You want to know how many people. So I filtered it by 20% of 575 snaps. Okay. We have 3 pages worth of guys. So he was 37th out of 129 eligible players, BMO. So 37 out of 129 in terms of eligible interior D linemen to be graded for pass rush. Did I just say 139? Hang on, BMO. 37 out of 129. 37 out of 129, not 139. My bad, man. Jahan Dotson was a good pickup. He will get lots of mismatches too. Agree with you there. Definitely agree with you, Donnie. G Dragon says Trotter will be a starter by the end of the season. I like Trotter. I think opportunity has to be there, to be honest, G Dragon. But I think he's a really good player, to be quite honest, G Dragon. I really do. I think that he showed like the same things we said about Nakobe, right? We said that Nakobe's really instinctful in terms of the run game. You can say the same exact thing about Jeremiah Trotter Jr. Young man is very instinctful there. I actually really like that room if it can get experience this year. Nakobe, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Ben Van Sumeren. I think they got some young dudes that got some upside. I think Byron Young will contribute. Yeah, I think there's reason to suspect that they're going to have a heavy rotation. Steve, thank you for sharing your knowledge and thoughts. I honestly love how you explain your thoughts. I really appreciate your help in learning the details. How often do you do this? I will be back. Joe, I'm trying to do this Monday through Friday for an hour around 10 o'clock every day. For at least an hour every day around 10 o'clock. I want to come on and just kind of talk about today's events. I'm thinking about actually doing live broadcast of the games. I got to see how my wife feels about that. Number one, I love the games. So it's, I might be jumping up and moving around a little bit. Just bear with me. I might exit the screen for a few seconds. I'll be back in a second. You might see me walking off. It's because I'm heated and I'm different in game than I am when I'm on the channel, guys. I'm a Newcastle County guy. I don't know what to tell you. Emotions get the better of me, bro, when it comes to these games. But I think that's something I might actually, Mike and them will be getting on me and saying I should have been doing this the whole time. But I really enjoy watching the games, and it's kind of I know Mike gives up a lot to do those play-by-play stuff, but it's something I might add this year as well. And then we're also going to do dedicated videos. I'm going to put out probably 2 or 3 dedicated videos a week to where I'll break down some form of the 22 and a player. I'll spotlight a player and what I see going on. Brian says, I don't like sacrificing a home game in Brazil because the Packers have a huge following in Brazil. Roger Goodell is a clown. Yeah, it didn't look like the Eagle players were overly enthused about this trip either, to be quite fair about the whole situation, Brian, right? Exactly seem like they love this idea. Eagles fan said it's black helmets and black pants opening night in Brazil. That's cool. I like that. I like the, with the white jersey with the black pants and the black helmets. I actually like that combination. Forest fires in Brazil are creating extremely bad air quality. Let's hope it's under control by game time. Joe, that's a great point. I didn't know that. I heard somebody was talking about it, but yeah, I didn't realize that, Joe. That could be a little problematic. Definitely. I just realized that the Eagles are wearing the Oreo combination for the first time ever, according to the team. Dave, what's up, brother? Long time no see, man. How you doing, buddy? Little Strawberry. I love your screen name. I actually have I have a little pit bull here that her name is Strawberry. Gate City, what do you see from Oren Burks? Veteran dude. I think he's squarely a backup in the league. Really good special teams player. I will say that he's the kind of guy that if you got to get through a 2 to 4 game stretch at linebacker, he could do the job, quite adequately. But, the longer you leave that young man on the field, the more tape gets out there, the more they're going to take advantage of him a little bit, to be quite honest. Better than what, it's so weird because I do think the 22 that, Kaiser White and, kind of like what we had in the linebacker room from the starting position with Nakobe being the main backup was we had 3 guys that could really play. You know what I mean? Past that though, I don't think the depth was as good as it is this year. I don't know that we're solidified from the starting perspective. I do think that we got to see the Kaiser White, TJ Edwards, Nakobe Dean, even though Nakobe barely played that year. We got to see if the starting combo of Devin White and either Zach Bond or Devin White and Nakobe Dean or Nakobe Dean and Zach Bond or I don't know, insert combination, I guess, guys. We got to see if that starting level works its way out. But, I do think that from top to bottom, there's a lot of talent there. So JD was ranked in the top quarter of the league. That sounds good to me. Yeah. Like I said, it was on limited snaps, BMO, I think, to go into the point that Mr. Sandman's probably trying to give us, which is like, maybe wanting a top 25 finish while simultaneously increasing his workload might be a little wishful thinking on my part, to be quite honest, but I do just think it would shut the narrative down, because if the man finishes with more snaps playing in pass rush situations than he's done previously and finishes with a top 25 standing in terms of the true pass set, grading, I definitely think that kind of shuts down the narrative, right? I mean, definitely, I could see people like, when you start working the numbers out and everything, like it does seem like, oh boy, like that could be quite the challenge, to be quite honest. Little Strawberry said, Gate City, what are you eating on Eagles Packers game day? I'm barbecuing some steaks and potato salad. Hey man, that sounds like a good meal. I'm not going to lie. I'll probably do some wings at least. I'm probably going to do some homemade dip, things like that. I don't know if I'm with those steaks on the grill. I got to see. I might just do, first game of the year, I might just keep it. We're doing some hamburgers, some hot dogs, some wings. I might make my own, I like to make my own ranch dressing sauce, dipping sauce, stuff like that. We'll see. I mean, we'll definitely see, man. We'll see. I haven't really planned it all the way out yet. Mr. Salmon said Jordan has to earn the right to rush the passer on third down by stopping the run on first and second. But last season, Cox got all of the pass rush sets. JD should take the majority of those opportunities. I got you. I know what you meant, Mr. Salmon. I had you, bro. Wings sounds good. I feel like the stars on this team are hungry and eager to show individually how much work they have put in, and the young pups and the rest of the team will follow suit. Eyes on Hurts, AJ, Six, Devontae, and Barkley. Yeah, I hate how you don't get it, like trying to type this stuff out in that limited space. Carter, Davis, CJ, GJ, on defense. Yeah, I'm excited. I know we don't know, Eric, what the defense is going to be yet. Like, there's a lot of uncertainty. Like, I'm not trying to oversell it. I'm trying to be a little cautious here, but like, I do think there's real reason to be optimistic in like what we saw develop in the secondary, right? I mean, I'm a little uncertain about the edge players and like if we have the proper rotation, but I do trust this front office. If we're at the trade deadline and Nolan Smith has not turned into what we wanted him to be yet, Patrick Johnson, these other guys aren't getting the job done behind them. We're not getting a very consistent third and fourth edge rush. I think you'll see a move get made. Like I trust them to correct it if need be. Like, but we're gonna get into that. That's gonna be next week's topic. All right, guys, I'm gonna jump off of here because I got to do some things before I go pick the baby up at like 1. I appreciate you guys. We will be back Monday. I'll try to put some stuff out over the weekend, guys. So there's some actual content. We will be back Monday at 10 a.m. and we'll line something up. I'm still working on the secondary. I know a lot of you guys wanted me to do a video like this, a live stream where we talk about the secondary. Secondary is upcoming, guys. So we're definitely going to talk about the secondary. We're going to put some work in. We're going to talk a little bit about the way that Vic's been playing his coverages recently. We're going to talk about the fits and like, we'll do the best we can to project what's going to happen, guys. I mean, it's all a projection, no doubt about it, but I do feel pretty confident that we're going to be improved over last year for sure. All right, y'all. I appreciate y'all, man. I'll see you guys. Well, I'll see you guys this weekend as I put out some videos, but I'll also see you guys on Monday at 10 a.m. for the live stream. All right, y'all. Peace. I'm out of here.